Oh, full screen. Yikes. Yikes. Good morning. How is everybody? All 7 of you. Good morning, Salty. Good morning. Let's see who we got. Glitter Witch. That's a cute name. I like that. Yeah. So this is just kind of a last minute thing that can you hear me? This is just a last minute thing. I have been having conversations about journalism, what it means, and the YouTube space and how it can be effectively used or not used, and what happens, when a reporter or somebody puts themselves in sort of the middle of a story, and what that looks like, and the problems with that. Also, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about protections for journalists. We have no special protections really, unless our states have shield laws of some form or fashion. So, I've just been hearing a lot of chatter from various parts of new media or social media, from citizen journalists to journalists, whatever, that are talking about, being targeted in some way for their speech. And the thing is that maybe, but there are no actual real intense guardrails around us as an industry. There's no federal laws, and actually this administration has overturned some of the previous administration's protections for whistleblowers, leakers, whatever. But also, I was just made aware that my favorite twosome, Murder Sheet, has taken me to the woodshed, I guess, and part of it 3-part series. And I don't want to get into a ton about that, but I do think it brings up a very interesting question that I've sort of been wrestling with. And I think that a lot of folks out there in both journalism and some of the law tubers kind of are, going round and round with. So that's why I wanted to bring on the Professor Crankius. So let me add him to the stage here. Oh, you're small. Woo, hang on. Where are you? Where are you at? Okay. Hey.
I'm here somewhere.
Okay.
Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm, I took my blood pressure medicine before listening to at least some of the 3-part series.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So, um, I really wanted to touch on, and I know you don't practice in the area of, like First Amendment law or what, First or 14th Amendment claims made by journalists for privilege and all this other stuff. But I mean, generally speaking, I do want to talk about first and foremost the, or maybe we should do it the other way around so I can get you out of here. So, you know what? Interesting. So yes, here, I'm going to answer this question. Yes, I did. And I think that is, I kind of responded to that because the fact of the matter is, and so people don't know about the Blake Lively ruling or whatever it is, I'm not sure. So I need to make that clear. I'm not real sure. I haven't read through it. I've just seen the stuff on Twitter, and I know Ian Runkle is going to take a look at it. And it's about an independent YouTube creator, journalist. I don't know what he calls himself. I'm not familiar with this person. But basically it's a ruling that this person doesn't meet the criteria for journalists, whatever. So I have, that's a federal statute, I think. I think that was in a federal court. And there, guys, there are no federal protections. So for journalists, and I think that every court can operate. I think that now, okay, so tell me this, Michael. Would you agree that generally speaking, generally, courts have had a sort of gentleman's or gentlewoman's agreement with reporters and things like that, that coverage of trials, that generally speaking, there are some unwritten rules around the Fourth Estate, where there's, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Not necessarily
Well,
protect access.
let me see. So let's say you've got a small courtroom
Mhm.
and people have a right to a public trial. And, there's the interesting question to which I don't have an answer. If you've got 1,000 people who want to get in,
Uh-huh.
does a press person, and I don't mean credentialed press,
Right, right, right.
but
Mhm.
does a press person have any greater right to a seat in the public trial than just a general member of the public?
Right,
I don't know. I don't know.
right. And
Now, Gull and Rick Allen's case
Mhm.
actually designated seats for the press.
Right.
I don't like the way she, picked and chose, but that's another matter. She did designate seats for the press.
Mhm.
So you talk about gentlemen's or gentle ladies agreement. Maybe there is.
Yeah. And but I think the important thing is that I brought up, and I keep bringing it up, and Michael's sick of it, I'm sure, but the Branzburg v. Hayes case, which actually is a very interesting one. And it was in 1972. It was about the disclosure of, it was a journalist working, I don't know, he was covering Black Panthers. It had something to do with observing a drug deal, as a journalist, in his capacity as a journalist, reporting on, I think it was hash, something like that. And so this went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it was found that this journalist could be compelled to testify in front of the grand jury, um, and so that, and Strickland, I think, is it Strickland that everybody's been gunning for to overturn, but it is consequential in understanding that there are not broad, unless you have a state law, a state shield law, there aren't broad protections, and certainly not on a federal level. So I think that people, it's frustrating to me as a former journalist slash old bag student, to see how some of this is being misrepresented, and it doesn't take much to look into your state laws, and I would encourage people to do that before you decide to head out and cover a trial or whatever the case may be. But again, I don't have any intel on the Blake Lively thing. I do believe that Ian Runkle's going to talk about it, so I would defer to that man. Um, so anyway, hang on. One moment, please. Ba, 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 ba. The I was going to play some of this. Well, let's just dive in. Tell me what you heard, because the thing is, I did have a plan for this morning, and then Osbrook texted me saying, "Have you taken your blood pressure medication?" And
Well, I mean, it was a predictable peak Tweedle hit job on Andy Baldwin, Kara, and you.
right.
And it was mostly devoted to Andy Baldwin, but at the end of part two, um, they go after Kara a bit, and they go after you a bit more, and they misrepresent what a response from the disciplinary commission that says, so there's a standard form letter, and
Let's back up.
the disciplinary commission.
Let's set up the background here, right? So I've been very open about filing a complaint against Kevin Greenlee. I've shared it. I put it out there, and they it was after I found out that Richard Allen. They contacted Richard Allen, and again, whatever. I filed a complaint after they misrepresented me to a third party. And they have their perspective on it, and make a lot of fun of me and my comments about utilizing a former freelance outlet. But the truth is, they contacted a former freelance outlet of mine and said that I was defaming them publicly. And that's misrepresentation to a third party. So I brought that forward, and they're going to try to lean into, but you contacted them under false pretenses. Here's the thing. There's this thing called NetGalley that everybody can sign up for. NetGalley provides, let me see if I can find some of my galleys. Hold on one second. Oh, here's one. Here's a work of actual journalism. They're uncorrected copies that are sent to writers, journalists, people like that. And you can request them. The interesting thing about the Murder Sheet book is that they weren't going to release it. And they didn't release it, except to a few very select people. That is not generally how galleys work. And I approach there. And so back up even further. The only reason that I came into Delphi is because of the way, and they're very right about this. I'm focused on them because they're doing a terrible job. And I do think that they occupy a space that they should not get to occupy. And that is being acting as a lawyer, potentially, or I'm sorry, introducing yourself as an attorney, to me, should come with a higher burden under ethical rules that are well established. So I filed a complaint earlier this year. And I made 3 claims in it, and they didn't read the whole thing, but whatever, it's their show. They can represent it however they like. And they were making speculations about, I'd been leaking information from Andrew Baldwin, the deposition or something like that, the unredacted deposition. I have to tell you that is a public record. And it should all be out, right? So it's not a leak. But man, oh man, is there ever a leak out there that, they've centered themselves on. So anyway, I made this report which anybody can do. And you know, I think that I was actually reticent to do it. They like to say, and I was, which is not really like me, but it's when they came and misrepresented, you know, that I was defaming them in public, that I was like, you know what, fuck this shit. I'm sorry. Not today. So anyway, that's the point at which I filed the complaint earlier this year. I had received a letter from the disciplinary committee, like in April, that it was underway. I sent after their book came out with some significant issues that and Michael, you can tell me about the attorney rules, but it seems, you know, I think that this is a line that you and I were going to talk about that flies pretty close to the sun of that line of demarcation where does an attorney have free speech? How far does that go? And how does that cross over into reporting and leveraging? And I think that you know, their own reporting, so to speak, it really bears out that they are very much the only outlet for Delphi news, right? So but you know, I reached back out to the disciplinary commission and said, you know, can I amend a complaint? Because I was like, this is I don't know how they're backing any of this up, and that just seems like it struck me wrong, Michael Osbrook, that there were misrepresentations, I believe, in that book. And I say that because they don't have any footnotes. They don't have anything in there. So I don't know. And so my point is that I reached back out. They said, you can just amend your existing complaint. And that was in September. And then I got a letter from a completely different body. And I can't remember what it's called, but it's actually the Supreme Court. Osbrook, do you know what that's called?
It's the OSC office of, I think it's the Office of the Supreme Court.
Yes. Okay, that's right. So apparently, I don't know what they say in their podcast, and you can all go listen to it for yourself.
Can I interrupt? They don't say anything about, if I recall correctly, they don't say anything about the referral to the OSC.
Interesting. Okay. Well, because that's not a typical thing, right? So that is not and I've talked to, oh God, and they make great hay out of all the friends I have made in Delphi. Like you crank, like Andy Baldwin, who's not a friend, by the way, and Carol Winnicky, my God, right? So they make great hay out of all of this and suggest that it was something that I was basically commanded to do by Baldwin, right? So I'm like, okay, that's fine. Think whatever you like. That's great. But the truth is that the letter, and I actually got a weird voicemail from the office saying, you know what, I can probably play it. Should I play it? Nah. Okay. It's from, but it is, I can give you the broad overview. I reached out to the office of, what did you say? OSC?
I think it's the Office of the Supreme Court.
It is. Yeah. And so what I reached out to Kara because she is a member of the disciplinary board. And I was like, you know, I got this letter. This seems weird. I don't know what this agency is. This isn't where I filed it. And I reached out to her for the very specific reason because maybe she would be able to point me in the direction of how this works. Well, I, you know, basically was able to get in touch with somebody at the office at both places, a disciplinary commission and the other body. And the reason for dismissal that I was given was not that it was frivolous, but that it was the underlying issues I brought forth involved a member of the disciplinary committee board. And so I asked them, is Kevin Greenlee on the disciplinary board? Because I don't know, is he? Because that's the only person I was making any sort of complaint about. So there was some hemming and hawing and back and forth. And I got an email then earlier this week from a gentleman at the Supreme Court services or whatever, that these things get farmed out to, when he really didn't give me a good answer, but essentially that there was a conflict because the underlying issue involved a member. I just, you know, look, I'm assuming that whatever argument they made on their podcast was probably the argument they made to the disciplinary board, right? That
No, they didn't have to respond, so they didn't make any argument to the
how do you know that?
OSC. So because that's the way it goes. They didn't. I mean, I think they even said it was so. Their take is that these complaints were so frivolous. Baldwin's complaint, your complaint, were so frivolous nobody had to respond, and
Oh,
that's the way it usually. That's the way it usually goes. So what happens is somebody files a grievance with the disciplinary commission. Now, this is. I hope that thing stops ringing. So the way it usually goes is that you file your grievance and it goes to the disciplinary commission. They'll send you a letter saying we got it.
yep,
We're looking into it. Very
right.
nice. And then you get a form letter back saying if they're not doing anything with it, we've reviewed it. It doesn't raise a substantial question, requiring investigation or something like that. I mean, you could read the letter. I think the letter from the OSC was pretty much the same as the letter that the disciplinary commission sends out. One of the interesting questions about your complaint is, what is the conflict of interest in your complaint
Yeah.
that caused the disciplinary commission to kick it to the OSC? And it's just right.
The only
Forget
thing,
it, Jake.
it's Delphi, right?
It's Delphi. This goes under the "this is not normal" thing. Now, it is normal when there is a conflict of interest for them to kick it, but it's absolutely not. Yeah.
But so there are ways to handle it at the disciplinary commission level that would wall off an attorney. There was a case recently where somebody on the disciplinary committee failed to disclose, I don't know, stumping for somebody that opposed your AG. And so as a result, they were like, they had to wall him off from any of the decision-making process. And so it within the disciplinary committee. So so if you have a conflict of interest, much like judges can recuse or whatever, if it comes across and it's going to impact, even if it's going to touch your case, you can, be walled off from that. So the reason that it was kicked is very unclear and nebulous. And so I think that this is another area where we aren't demanding enough from about transparency, about how these processes work. But I digress. So
I'll give you, I mean, for the people in the chat, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example of walling somebody off. Long ago, when wishing still helped, and I was a deputy attorney general, there was a death penalty case in the office of the attorney general in the appeals division, and it was a death penalty case that shortly before I started working for them, I had worked on the defense side.
okay.
And I gotta say, and I told them about it, and I gotta say, the AG's office, everybody, I mean, the appeals division then was relatively small. So it's a lot bigger now, and everybody's divided up into cubicles. I mean, there were cubicles then, but there was a big central area. I mean, everybody knew everything that was going on. I mean, it was much more collegial, I think, than it is now, but I could be wrong. But everybody in the office was just fantastic about it. I mean, there was not a word about this case any place I was. I didn't see any of the emails. I mean, I was walled off.
Yeah.
And there are ways to do that. And I was very, very appreciative, because I didn't want to know. And the day they executed the guy, they even gave me the day off.
Christ. Okay. Yikes. But I think this makes a good point, because the inability and I think that this kind of, the analog I will make to my other faves are the hidden true crime people, is that to me, I'm only bound by ethical standards and whatever that I've picked up over the years from working and making mistakes and failing and then trying again and having to say, whoops, I fucked that up, and then having to go back. That's how I learned the ethics of actual journalism. So when I see, like, I guess my point is with hidden true crime, right? I think it's an interesting analog, because you have two professionals. You have an attorney, and you have a forensic psychologist. And what
do you mean you have an attorney? Lauren's an attorney?
No. Murder Sheet. So Murder Sheet, you have a journalist and an attorney. So professional, whatever, regulated. And then you have Lauren, journalist, and John, Dr. John. And that line, so the rules of ethics govern some level of speech or ability to act in your capacity as a forensic, whatever, or as an attorney. So there are these ethical gray areas that are going to be coming more and more to a head. And I think that truthfully, it would have been very interesting to see what Indiana Supreme Court might have thought about the intersection of journalism and an attorney. Also, by the way, I have to note, they didn't, Kevin Greenlee was on the list of people that contacted Richard Allen. So when he says he didn't contact him, he's got all the paperwork. So whatever. And that was a big part of the complaint. It's not pushing narratives. It's actually, go ahead.
Do you know? So we know he at least tried to. Do we? I mean,
I don't think he replied.
do we know if Richard Allen personally declined to talk to him, or was it sort of filtered through the Department of Correction? No, he doesn't want to talk to you. In other
No
words,
idea.
was it an attempted contact or an actual contact?
Well, no. So I think I can't remember because they contacted him twice, and I think it was they put now, and this is not, and so this is not bad. Like journalists can contact people in prison, right? That is something that they can do, and that's something that Lauren Matias, whatever, is being called out for now because she was shady as hell and misrepresented to herself to Lori Vallow. That's a whole other thing. But it's okay to do that, and so it's also okay because prison calls cost money. If you want to speak to somebody, that you can put money on their books so they can call you. And that's, I believe, in this April contact, they put money on his books if he wanted to. And I'd have to go back and check. And I don't have that right with me. But I do note that the second contact about, hey, your wife's going to leave you, right? Because that's journalism. They didn't put money on his books. So I thought that was interesting. So I think that that there was no actual contact made, but the note that was delivered was from Kevin Greenlee and Anya Kane. And so I don't, and it was about a plea. So the problem, there's many problems here, I thought. But apparently that got lost in the shuffle. But I thought it would be an interesting, I mean, this is what you and I have been talking about, and you don't necessarily agree completely with me on this about the line, a hard and fast line for lawyers who are also, journalists or represent themselves to be journalists or creators or whatever.
Well, so I see. Let me.
Kevin was
Please.
put on a no contact list. Yes, that was later. That was after. Yep, you're right. That's right. Thank you, chat. Yeah. So
So the
yes.
real Kate O says in the chat somehow a letter. I mean, she seems to be a lawyer and got one of these complaints or filed one and got one back saying, I don't know, does your letter say doesn't rise to the level of misconduct? I don't think. I don't
No.
think. I
No.
don't think that's not what my letters generally say.
Nope.
And everybody, look, most civil lawyers don't. I don't think civil lawyers get complaints all that often. If you're in criminal defense, I can tell you that there are men, especially public criminal defense.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of unhappy people when things turn south, and
Mm-hmm.
I just got. I mean, this is a guy I didn't even represent. I offered to look into something for him if he paid for the transcript, and I mean, it was a life sentence involved, and I was happy to do that, but I wasn't going to pay for the transcript. And he said he had money, and he turned around and after he didn't didn't pay for the transcript, and I didn't want anything to do with him. He was writing a law school. He was writing, and he filed a grievance, and I got that back saying, he like suddenly it was a conspiracy between me and the law school to defeat his civil rights kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
But I got the form letter, just it didn't say it didn't rise to the level of misconduct. It just said, this grievance has been filed, blah, 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 blah. I got a copy. And and the language I recall is you don't have to respond. It doesn't raise a substantial question, something like requiring investigation or something like that. In other words, we're just not going to take it farther or further. And so it's not that it's frivolous, and I'll get to your complaint in a minute, in just a second, actually. And So what it means is that, yeah, we're just not kind of interested in it could be frivolous, but it just means we're
Sure.
just not interested enough in this to pursue it. And by the way, it's, the disciplinary commission and I suppose the OSC. I mean, it would be interesting to know how many of these things get
Kick.
referred to the OSC for conflicts, and sort of the percentages also. I would think that the OSC, because they really don't have the,
Bandwidth,
I mean,
capacity.
yeah, something like that, the expertise even.
Mhm.
I don't know. I would think that they're more likely to be uninterested than the
Yes.
disciplinary commission itself.
Wow.
And I will say the vast, I mean, the huge, vast majority
Mhm.
of disciplinary complaints that are pursued.
Yep.
And, Kara can go, if she hears this, about this, she can tweet and tell everybody how wrong I am. But the things that will get you into trouble are,
Where are you? I can't hear you.
Neglecting, I mean, and I
Hey.
mean really neglecting your client's case.
Hey, you're talking like a potato.
Third is probably having.
Can you not hear me?
Client. Maybe third is actually lying
Wait.
to court.
Wait. I can't hear you. What happened?
You don't see.
I can't hear you, Michael.
hang on.
Michael Osbrook. I didn't hear any of that.
I
There you
think
go.
maybe I have to get back on. A phone call came in and blew me off.
Okay, so go ahead and say
I'm
what.
going off. I'll come back.
What? No, you're fine. I can hear you now.
Oh, you can?
You know what? I mean, this is sort of the way that Osbrook and I run this shit show. Questions, comments? Yeah, and the thing is that for me, when you put yourself at the center of a story, as Murder Sheet has done, as evidenced by the contempt hearing, as evidenced by, there he is. When you put yourself at the center of a story, the way that they did, or make, a fool out of yourself, the way Hidden True Crime did, or the way that this turtle person seems to be spinning out. When you make yourself the story, you need to expect to be a part of the story. And so I don't care what they call me or say about me personally. I mean, but I do think that we need to remember that they place themselves into the middle of a leak situation. And we know that because we've read the transcripts. We know that they are so my point is that you're fair game. If you're the source of an exhibit 5 and 6, Kevin and Anya, which you are the only source. That requires journalists to pick that apart a little bit and understand a little bit more. So anyway, Michael's back. You were talking about what would get you. I think you were talking about the 3 things that would get you.
Yeah, and it ended up being 4 things. So it was, stealing money from your clients, neglecting your clients, lying to courts, and, probably a distant fourth. You don't see much of that: sex with your clients, at least while they're your client.
Good Lord.
And you're not.
Gross. Okay, go ahead.
So the interesting question. So there is a rule, and it was part of your complaint, and I don't remember which number it is, but there is a rule, and it's a really important one.
Okay. Let me try to pull it up. Go ahead.
So you cannot, if you are a lawyer, contact a represented party about a matter in which they're represented.
Mhm.
You
Keep
just can't
talking.
do
I'll be
it.
right back. Keep
You
talking. I'll
just
be right
can't.
back.
You just can't do it, and that's why, once Kathy Allen was representative, going back to this whole retainer agreement thing. Once Kathy Allen was, she asked me to send the copy of the retainer agreement to Dave Cloutier, which indicated to me she was represented. But for a text to her asking about anything, but for a text saying, have you and Dave made any decisions about the retainer agreement? Everything I've had to say, I've said to Cloutier only. And that's a really important, so the accusations that I've in any way badgered Kathy Allen are just ridiculous. So anyway, and I'm just using this as a personal example of, the importance of this rule. If the rule didn't exist, I could badger her. Maybe if I were so inclined, I wouldn't be. But and you don't want when you have a represented party, you don't want lawyers interfering, other lawyers interfering with your representation of your client. And that people get in touch with me all the time wanting to consult, and they've already got lawyers, very often at the state PD's office, and I just tell them, I'm sorry, you're represented. I can't talk to you about this. If you want to get permission from your lawyer to talk to me about it, that's fine. But I just can't talk to you about it.
So how often does that happen? How often does that happen to you?
Oh, often.
Oh, really? Okay.
Often. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
often. I mean, look, people have the mistaken belief that I'm some sort of, I get 10 to 20 calls a week wanting, consultations. People think I'm some sort of wizard or something, and I'm the man behind the curtain. I'm not the wizard.
Oh, heavens. Let's see. So hang on a second.
Not a bad man, just a bad wizard.
Bad wizard. So I'm looking for okay, so I found it, my complaint. Let's see. Okay. Kevin Greenlee contacted Richard Allen on April 12th, 2024. Mr. Allen was represented party at Wabash Valley Prison awaiting trial. Kevin and Anya Greenlee, see attached, contacted Mr. Allen and placed money on his commissary after a response to discuss his case. And then I just put in here specifically what it was. It was from Kevin and Anya. And then now this Michael might go to the way that it doesn't violate the rule is that, let me see if I can share the actual, let's see, because it may make a difference how, 1 second, please stand by. Because again, and so again, this is all about this weird intersection that I'm like struggling with. Share screen. Hang on. Okay. So this, let's see. So can you see this? This is the, this is what I sent in as supporting document. So, oops. So, can you see it, Michael?
No.
Oh, for crying out loud. So it comes in, and again, this might be where Kevin might be right. Yikes. Richard Allen. So Greenlee, Kevin, and Anya. So in the field where it's like person contacting, It says Kevin and Anya Greenlee, right? Now, but then, hello, Mr. Allen. My name is Anya Kane, and I'm a journalist. I'm covering your case. I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions. How are you today? How is Wabash Valley compared to Westville? What sort of things do you do to pass the time there? It'd be great to talk to you about your case too, but I understand if you don't want to. Just let me know. I'd mostly be curious about how you still want to go through with the trial and use an actual innocence defense, or if you're looking to plead guilty to make a deal. All the best, Anya. So she signed it, right? But
Yeah, but the rule, so the rule against no contact, right? I can't. So let's use the Kathy Allen example. I can't go out there and ask somebody else to do for me what I can't do myself.
And the thing is, Polly, I love you so much. Thank you for being here. I heard about you, lady. You cray cray. Okay. See, who gives a shit? Welcome. So I guess my thing is, I'm timing his ass out because I know that I don't have any mods in here, but whatever.
So maybe to cut to the chase a little bit is that the disciplinary commission, or in your case, the OSC, overlooked, and for good reason or bad reason, I don't know, and I don't know whether they noticed it, but I don't think there's any question the rule was broken.
Okay.
Now, maybe that doesn't raise a substantial question.
Right.
But the rule is the rule. And, whether it was Anya, whether it was Kevin, who actually contacted Richard Allen.
Well, his name
I don't think that
his name is on.
What?
So that's my point. So the document that I submitted has Kevin and Anya Greenlee on it.
Right. So all I'm saying is, so the question is, so there are a lot of lawyers doing journalism these days.
Correct.
And so the interesting question that the Supreme Court could have answered, and they could have said, it's fine. I mean, they could have answered it either way. I don't know how the First Amendment plays into this, but the interesting question is whether, in doing, let's say, investigative journalism,
sure,
what are the limits? Do the rules governing you as lawyer apply when you're wearing the hat of journalist?
Right.
And I don't have an answer. It's an interesting question, and I think it's such a blatant violation of the rule. I don't know.
Here's another thing, though, I'll throw in the mix because I'm trying to solve this puzzle. I do think that it's interesting that it got kicked. I would be interested to know what that process is. But, I think that it's problematic in so many different ways because there is free speech, and there are, there's people out here on LawTube doing some amazing stuff and keeping people informed, right? And we want that. I want that. But this is, I can't wrap my head around this one because it feels like to me, and you and I talked about kind of the ethics and things of this, is that we want lawyers to have First Amendment rights to speak, right? But I don't know how.
Speaking speaking and investigating are two different things. I mean, look, Andrea Burkhart doesn't involve herself. I mean, she's not calling up, Luigi.
Right. Right. So, but she did file an original action into Delphi to get access to whatever.
Yeah, and sort of became a party to it there, but she wasn't contacting parties in the case. She was, filing as a journalist. I mean, that's a different animal altogether.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to bring that up because I think that could be the argument, like, oh, well, Andrea Burkhart was, you know what, you're right. It's totally different. So, and another thing I think that I just don't get, why do people give a shit what people call themselves journalists? I mean, the reason I care is because it's the field that I come from. But everybody gets so tied up in their underwear about being a journalist or not. And my barometer is ethical guidelines. Now, everybody makes mistakes. Lord knows I have made so many mistakes, but there's also this other sort of thing where it's like, well, but how far is too far here? And that's why I think it's a weird issue, especially because I don't know. I think that people fundamentally believe that journalists can do whatever they want. And have some sort of special immunity that, somehow freedom of the press means that people who are either credentialed or not credentialed media can have, act with impunity. It is just not so. But I think what I've kind of learned through this Delphi situation is that there are certain, well, and in general with the criminal legal system, is that, it takes a lot to hold a judge accountable or a lawyer accountable, right? So they do have special protections, and I think in some cases appropriately so. If you're hearing a case or you're pleading a case, you don't want to suggest that a lawyer can't lawyer. But I just don't know what the limit is.
Well, lawyers do have limits on their speech. You're not supposed to do stuff that brings the court. You're not supposed to do or say stuff that brings the courts into disrepute.
Right.
And my answer to that is I don't have to, because I just let the courts do it themselves. But there is just this really clear rule that was really clearly violated. And I mean, it's a rule any lawyer should be aware of all the time. I mean, it's, one of the first things. So when I was faculty advisor for the Indiana Legal Assistance Project, which became the Indiana Incarcerated Individuals Legal Assistance Project. Like the first thing, I mean, there was a checklist, and the first thing you do is go look up people's dockets and see if they're already represented. And if they're already represented, the letter goes out saying, sorry, we really can't talk to you about this case because you're represented.
Right.
And, the idea that, and look, I'm not saying, I mean, we can get into my tangle with the disciplinary commission in a bit if you want to, but as my lawyer said to me, if I'd rolled over on the complaint that was filed, actually 2 complaints that were filed against me by an Allen County judge.
Oh.
On my worst day, he said, on my worst day, it's a public reprimand. And my guess is on the worst day, for Kevin Greenway for contacting Richard Allen, it would be a public reprimand. And the only reason it would be public and not private would be, actually, it might be in re anonymous, so it might be private.
Mhm.
And they lay out the facts and they say, well, this guy's a lawyer. He doesn't get to, yes, he's a journalist too, and he doesn't get to contact parties, even as part of his, wearing his journalism hat. Or they could have said, that's perfectly fine.
Right.
I mean, it wouldn't have been, and they could have issued an opinion saying, no misconduct, no private reprimand, no nothing, in re anonymous. We're issuing this opinion. We're issuing this opinion as a matter of guidance. I mean, they passed over a really possibly interesting case, and and I spent 3 years on, they talk about the Tweedles talk about repeatedly how frivolous all the Baldwin's complaint, your complaint.
I want you to address that.
McClellan got a clean bill of health. I mean, I can tell you the complaint,
Talk about that a little bit, because I think that frivolous is.
It just doesn't mean it's frivolous.
Okay, go ahead.
And I mean, I think they said, I think that this is a quote that, this gave McClellan a clean bill of health. Well, yes, in a way, you're not going to be, the disease of the disciplinary commission isn't going to afflict you further. But I don't know that it's not a thing saying what you did is okay. It's just a thing saying whatever it is, it might be that it's frivolous. It might be, we're just not interested. It might be, and I mentioned this to you earlier when we were talking, it's Delphi. The complaint about Nick McClellan, it might be, man, we just don't want to put our foot in the Delphi thing, just as the Florida Disciplinary Commission, just on the complaints against Pam Bondi, said, we'll look at this maybe after she's no longer Attorney General, because we don't want to stick our foot in this particular federal-state conflict.
Right.
And so it really doesn't.
That's reasonable, though.
And look, you can have your opinion. I mean, if the Tweedles wanted to say, in our view, this thing was frivolous, that's fine. But the disciplinary commission's response does not mean that the complaint was frivolous.
Okay. Well, it means it's dead, right?
It means it's dead, and it could mean any number of things. It could mean it's frivolous. It could mean it's not serious enough to really warrant pursuing, or it could mean, man, it's Delphi. No, thank you.
Right. Right. I'll make sure to share the entire complaint with the exhibits, because they did not share the totality of my complaint. And I think it's worth reading because they skipped over a whole bunch of shit that I think they probably learned the art of journalism from their friend, the disgraced Jason Blair. But, I think that so it's just weird. I don't know. I think that the bile, and the thing is, it's like, dudes, it's like they take it as a personal beef. It's like, no, man, this is this is kind of a thing. What y'all have done here is worthy of examination. If I put out, and so am I, right? So this is, you know, the accountability and the entitlement that and it's the thing, the other thing that they said that I was trying to do to them, which I loved, was to chill their speech. I'm like, you know what? I could tell tales as old as time, about the extremes that they have gone to chill YouTubers' speech. And you can ask criminality, you can ask R&M, you can ask any number of people. So thou dost protest too much a little bit for me, but whatever. If they think I'm a shill for,
Well, it's just the projection thing. It's just the projection thing where every accusation is a confession.
well, they really leaned, I think they lean heavily into the leak in that,
Yeah.
which is interesting, I think.
Yeah. Well, they think, well, you know, for them, they think the leak is a gift that keeps on giving. Well, we'll see.
Yeah. It's just, you know, and the funny thing is, it's like, yeah, everybody needs to be held accountable in one way or another, right? I mean, and that, I don't mean that in a harsh way. I don't mean that in a way that is punitive necessarily, right? But you know, it's so back in my day, you used to have to sign your fucking name to an editorial because newspapers will not, and they still won't, print an editorial or an op-ed or whatever unless you're willing to put your name to it. And there is a reason for that. That reason is you don't get to come out and write letters to the editor or whatever it might be anonymously, because you need to have it, like it needs to be able to be, if you make an allegation in public, or like, let's take a small town newspaper where somebody wrote in and wanted to talk about, shit, I can't remember, when my mom owned a newspaper. I don't know, some bullshit going on, but they wanted their name anonymously. I don't know if it had to do with zoning or something really dramatic like that. But the point is, you can't publish that, because where's the accountability? That then you're putting yourself, you have to own what you do. And I think that, you know, that is just something that doesn't happen anymore. And I think people are really uncomfortable with it. I'm uncomfortable with it, but still, you know, I've had to come out a couple times and make some public amends, even over the Delphi thing, you know, some fuck ups I've made, or explanations.
You're the journalist, but isn't it really, I mean, yes, there's accountability, but isn't really, if you have something that's anonymous, you can't evaluate it for interest or bias.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. I mean, and you know what? That's not to say, so I want to make this clear. That's not to say that I think people need to put their faces out there, right? So that's not what I'm saying. Because it's not for everybody. But when you become a journalist, I learned very quickly, whoo, man, people hate your guts. And that's okay. But people hate your guts generally. So you have to, or I have to, grow a thick skin and learn to eat crow. Because, you know, there's another thing too. Like, I've had to issue, oh God, I mean, I hate issuing or having to issue clarifications after something's gone to print. It's like, oh, it sucks. But you know what? It's just the way that, and I think that's my kind of beef with the lack of accountability for some of the folks out here that are very clearly behind the scenes doing whatever, they're blurring the lines of what it is and is not to cultivate a source. It's okay to have an anonymous source. It's okay to have a source feeding you documents that are public. It's okay to have a leaked document of the Ron Logan PCR or whatever the hell it was. So it's all okay, right? But when you wow, I don't know. It's why I'm glad school's starting next week.
Hey, can I skip out for about 3 minutes and come back?
I mean, I don't know if we have any more ground to cover. Do we? Do you want to say more?
Okay.
I mean,
Up to you. I'm happy.
Jump out.
I'm happy. I just got to make a quick phone call, and I'll come back and maybe
Okay.
there are questions in the chat people want.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Be back in a sec. Bye.
Smell you later. Okay. So who has questions? Anybody? Do you want to see the cat? Oh, cat break. Toot toot. Bisque, it's about time you got here. Just kidding. So it's toodle toot break. Boop boop. Merry crickets to all who celebrate. Happy holidays to all those others. From the Communist Republic of New York City. Okay. Oh, she's in her box. What are you doing, Boop? There she is. There she is. What are you doing? Okay. That's the cat. Hello. Hi, sweetie. So yeah, I was going to come on here and have a nice long chat about Branzburg v. Hayes, which actually is linked in the description, because it's a very interesting case about what journalists can and can't do, that there is no real protections unless there's legislation. So when I see creepy white men coming out of the woodwork claiming that they're being and this is not Delphi related or anything, it's just or anybody making the proclamation that they are being persecuted for being a journalist. And I think that's why I get so upset, because it's like, you're not being persecuted, you're being a jackass. And you're not being persecuted because you're not taking fire. And I'm not saying you have to be some sort of international war correspondent to be a journalist. What I'm saying is that all of these people that are like rending of garments about being persecuted and harassed and blah, and if you're a journalist, ma'am, sirs, you need to know, and this is probably the best advert for not going into journalism, is that you need to be prepared to have your name go with your work, right? So it's the kind of thing that I guess I don't understand the world where people have such a level of entitlement that they don't believe that when you put out a product, I mean, if I bought a t-shirt and it was scratchy and I wanted to like return it to the Fruit of the Loom or whoever, and they were nasty to me on the phone, well, you know what? I'm going to write them a sternly worded letter because their product was shit and their customer service was shit. Same thing, right? So, I mean, I say this all the time, and I want to make it clear. I believe that anybody can be a reporter, and I believe there's great value in expanding that to, whether it's YouTube. I think YouTube is probably YouTube itself has got problems behind the scenes, but there's other platforms like Vimeo or Substack or whatever it is, wherever creators want to go and write or whatever, show you their cats, they should be able to do that. So, I encourage people to report on what's going on, in your communities, because there is such a lack of actual journalism going on, unfortunately. But hang on. Oh, he's back. Does anybody have questions? My question is, okay, hang on. Nicole says, my question is, if people other than us have that email from Greenlee, like maybe defense peeps. I don't know what this means. What does that mean? My question, if people have that email from Greenlee. I don't know. I don't know what that means, Nicole. Aw. Lots of cat people in the house. Yeah, I mean, Osberg, you there? Ugh. The one to Nick. I don't know what this is. Can you an email to Nick? Are you talking about I'm not sure what you're talking about. Unlike Kevin and Anya, I don't have Nick McClelland's direct phone number. Osbrook. I don't know, man. I don't know what he's up to. Hi, Young Black. I'm speaking in riddles? No. What? Oh, Lord. Yeah, sometimes you have to take a look at myself. Same. My God. I'm a mess. Are you here or not?
I am here.
Okay, there you are. All right. Does anybody have questions about the intersection that we've discussed here today?
I know there was one off-topic question about whether the appellate jockeys are stuck with the stipulations the trial lawyers made about the evidence, and the answer is yes, absolutely.
Oh, really? Okay, hang on. Let me get to that question. Because this is, I thought it was an interesting, Teresa did, let's see. Let's see. I don't see it, but it was, so can you restate the question?
The question was whether the appellate jockeys are stuck with the stipulations about the admissibility of various evidence that the trial lawyers made, and the answer is yes, absolutely. I mean, this is a direct appeal. If somebody wants to allege them ineffective for stipulating to those things later, that'll be in a post-conviction case. It's not going to be in the direct appeal. So yes, the appellate jockeys are stuck with the stipulations. They're stuck with the record as it exists.
But that includes the post-conviction filings.
Oh, absolutely includes the motion to correct error. Absolutely.
Motion to strike and all that stuff.
Well,
What-
the motion to strike, I mean, that's not going to get them any relief. What it might do is get the Court of Appeals to disregard McClelland's response.
Wait, what the hell is this? I don't know. Something about Brett from He's Gross. Anyway, oh, are you talking about the public information, Nicole? Or Nicole? That came out in a FOIA filing about the Kavanaugh hearing, I think. I don't know. It's online though. It's readily available. Oh, God, Crusher. Damn it. I sent you an email. Hi, Crusher. She's been just so you know, Michael, I'll let you know, Crusher, who I just put up here, is actually the woman who her family were the victims of Lori Vallow Daybell, and she has been talking about her experience with Lauren Matthias and was struck by Lauren Matthias and was taken to the Copyright Claims Board by Lauren Matthias for talking about her own family. So we've been having discussions about the role of journalists and about, this goes back to the chilling of the speech, and how these things sort of roll out. So I just wanted to draw attention.
Speech like a Chablis should be lightly chilled.
Woo! Michael Osbrook, ladies and gentlemen, crank of the year. Yeah, but I think that it's funny. It was funny to hear those words come dribbling out of Miss Kane's mouth, that I was trying to chill their speech. It's like, you wrote a book. You wrote a book, ma'am. I'm not sure how no, sorry, that's not the case. And I do think that there's it's a very interesting subject too, when it comes to this sort of idea of lawfare and the many claims that Murder Sheet has made against people like T, Criminality, having her served at her home at the Copyright Claims Board. All of this is public information. And I see it repeating itself with Kresha and her family being, used by Lauren Matthias to build her following, and then having her stream struck when she's using images of her own family that were murdered. You see where I'm going? It's real. Talk about chilling speech. So yeah. Anyway.
Well, and the Tweedles absolutely talked about, Baldwin's complaint and your complaint, and as weapon. I mean, this is their word, weaponizing. And I don't know whether it was legal process or legal, but it was weaponizing. It was lawfare, they were saying. I mean, they used the word weaponize. And of course, again, every accusation is a confession.
I mean, I long for the day when all of everything comes out about the lengths that those folks went to across like a 3-state area to silence speech, to silence and intimidate. So I think people know in the Delphi community anyway that man, there's a long story behind that. Is someone saying thank you? Oh, I've been listening along in the conversation in regards to where law and psychology intersect with journalism are hot topics. Oh, okay. Yeah, and it should be, I think, right? So I mean, these are the kind of things, and it's not saying that precluding speech, precluding somebody's right to be able to opine in a public forum is not cool. But if you're violating your rules of ethics, which, I mean, there are regulated professions, and they're regulated for a reason, and there's rules for a reason. And so, I just,
Well, the rules are actually to prevent. I mean, it's not just for a reason. It's the rules are to prevent, in general, harm to the people who rely on the professionals.
okay. Yes. Thank you. Say that again. I want to talk about that a little bit more.
Okay, so the point of the rules is, at least, I don't know what the psych rules are, but the rules of professional conduct are, for the most part, designed to attempt, at least, to protect the people who rely on the professionals from harm
Mm-hmm.
in their dealings with the professionals. And to go back to Rick Allen, you don't want lawyers. I mean, journalists, fair game, but you don't want another lawyer showing up asking Rick Allen if he's going to plead guilty or not. You don't know if the lawyer is going to interfere. He has the status of a lawyer. Rick might think it's okay to talk to him. I mean, you just don't know. And so, you've got JD after your name. And so even if Kevin Greenlee didn't represent himself as a lawyer, Rick may have known he was a lawyer. The people who get, the people who get,
he
the
says
people
it.
who get, what?
He says it in the opening, right? I mean, in the opening of every opening of their.
But I don't know that Rick was ever listening to their podcast.
No. My point is that he makes, and this is why I think it bothers me so, this particular intersection, and why, the meshing of all of these professional regulated professions that are coming out, like the Dr. John or whatever, is that, man, you represent yourself as, it's almost like trying to indemnify yourself. And so I find that really deeply concerning. I don't know. I just, ew. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, there's nothing to be sorry about. I think you asked me to restate what the rules were for, and I think I did that. And it's, I mean, people really can't get. I mean, the people who call me, right, who want me to consult my view of their case, or me to take their case on, or me to give them advice. Mm-hmm. If they're represented by somebody else, I don't know what that somebody else has done, whom they're investigating. I stick my foot in it without their knowing about it. It could harm their investigation, their case. It could sour the relationship between. I mean, I get a lot of people calling me up saying, I hate my lawyer, blah, 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 blah. Will you take my case? And I was like, I'm not going to even look at your case because you're represented. If you want get your lawyer to get in touch with me, that's fine. Or get in touch with me saying it's okay for me to talk to you. That's fine. I'll be happy to talk to you and your lawyer at the same time. Mm-hmm. It really is to prevent, by and large, is to prevent harm. I mean, part of the rules of, professional responsibility are also to sort of regulate the competition between lawyers. I mean, it is a guild system. Let's not kid ourselves. Right. And it is protectionist for sure.
Mhm.
But it's becoming less protectionist all the time. We're still not there, but
Right.
so the rules are important, and that among the like there are very complicated situations that are hard to parse out, and there one of the things non-lawyers on here who have slammed me, slammed Kara, well, mostly me, mostly Kara and me,
Right.
for being unethical. I mean that, like, we, back in law school, there's a whole semester's course on professional responsibility. I think it should actually be a year. There are real complicated situations to deal with. There have been a few complicated situations to deal with for me in this case. And as far as I know, I have stayed as far on the right side of any rule I know of, just because I don't want to I don't want to put my foot in
Right.
something here. Doesn't mean I've gotten it right. But I really got to say, the non-lawyers who accused Karen and me of unethical conduct.
Well, and the lawyers too, right?
Well, I don't know that any lawyers accused me of unethical conduct. Well, Greenlee, yeah, probably.
Attorney?
Yeah, he's a lawyer. Yeah, so yes, he's accused me of being unethical. He's Look, it's hard to even call him a lawyer. I mean, he's got the JD. He pays his dues. He pays his bar fees. He takes the required CLE, but he really doesn't do any lawyering. And
Well, he did sign
I mean,
it. He did file into the Richard Allen case and was on it for quite some time. I know it was in a limited capacity, but that doesn't preclude you from being a part of the case. So whatever.
That's right. But the rule on contacting represented parties applies whether you're in the case or not. I mean, it may apply more when you're actually in the case. I mean, take the typical divorce case, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm representing the wife, the other guy's representing the husband. I don't get to call up the husband.
Right. Right.
I mean, even if I'm just the lawyer and not representing the wife, I don't get to call up the husband about the case. But certainly if I'm representing the wife, I don't get to call up the husband, at least not without the other lawyer's permission.
Right. Right. There's rules for the road. And like you said, and I think that, that's the thing that I lose sight of too, is that these are not rules necessarily meant to punish unless there's some egregious wrongdoing, but they are to protect the public or the consumer or whatever the case may be. And I think the doctor analogy is even more, and I'm not talking about I'm talking like MDs and stuff like that, that there are some very specific professions that have been elevated to practical sainthood in the United States, which I don't know, man, should or should not be, but lawyer and doctor are certainly right up there. But I think
that's really let me interrupt you a second. That's really interesting, of course, too, right? Given what we're talking about,
mm-hmm.
I don't think there's so there's you get a diagnosis from one doctor. There's nothing stopping a second doctor from giving you their own diagnosis.
Right.
Unlike and you don't need the permission of the first doctor.
Right.
Whereas in the law, you do need permission from the first doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that, yeah. I think that, okay, so this is probably a bridge too far, but the way I think of I get pissed off about a lot of different stuff pretty easily. And one of the reasons that I get pissed off at at some reporters or journalists or whoever out there is that, I harp on about trauma-informed journalism and what that means, and that there are trainings in that. I'm actually attending a training at 2 p.m. today on how to cover the immigration situation, but not that I'm going to. I just like to stay up to date. But that there are actual areas of journalism that you can specialize in if you're going to do certain work. If you're going to work with victims of violent crime, if you're going to work with victims of war crimes, or former, I've interviewed folks that were lived through the Khmer Rouge. I've interviewed sexual assault survivors who could not get justice. I've interviewed a lot of different a woman in prison in Cameroon for being gay, thrown in jail. So there's a way to approach these situations that doesn't center on me. And I think that seeing the way that some of these folks who are dealing with people who have been victims of, name it, whatever the case may be, and embody almost that victimhood, it flies in the face of everything a trauma-informed and a Columbia Journalism School runs, and they're everywhere. There's trainings on how to deal with victims of X, Y, and Z crimes, or whatever the case may be. And those things are important. Like, anybody can do that. You don't have to be a journalist to hop onto a course that teaches about ethics in journalism. Everybody can do it. And I think more people should. But my point, I guess, back to the lawyer and the doctor situation, is that when I'm talking to somebody about, I don't know, Pol Pot and the genocide, I need to take myself out of the driver's seat and take my lead from the woman who lived through it, right? And to get, not draw on the victim's skin suit. And I don't know. I guess some people just don't subscribe to that, but it's because you don't want to cause more trauma to a person. So I think that, I don't know, maybe some people just aren't wired like that, but they're, you don't want to do more harm to a person that you're interviewing, for Christ's sake. Anyway, I don't know.
So hang on. Sigma Shadow 6 has an interesting comment. I guess the potential harm is that anything that comes out in an interview of a criminal defendant by another attorney or attorney journalist could result in statements with impact. Yeah, it really doesn't matter whether it's a lawyer or not. The fact is that, and Rick was kind of the victim of this, that statements of a party opponent, meaning all of Rick's statements, were admissible against him, and Nick McClelland got to pick and choose which ones he wanted to use. And so, yes, anything he said to a journalist or a lawyer would be admissible against him if it was possibly useful. The danger, the thing about the lawyer is, what makes the lawyer more dangerous, I think, is the risk, at least, that the person talking to them thinks that there's a lawyer-client relationship and it's privileged.
I see. Yeah.
You know, if a journalist calls you, you know, it's kind of your own risk. But you know, somebody with a JD after their name, you know, who knows what the person's going to think.
Well, and that's part of it too. So, you know, the other thing that I see the crossover with some of the you know, the hidden true crime that's coming out in that weird 9-hour live, whatever, is that there were some very, you know, just some very unethical things going on in the background about making contact with certain people. And it's like, you know, I don't understand if, you know, and it was specifically about contacting an inmate. And it's like, dude, it's okay for you to contact an inmate. Why are you trying to slow roll this? What? It's all right. You can do that. Anybody can do that. So it's the trying to cover it up. That's like, because that was something that happened in the Lori Vallow Daybell case, is that Lauren allegedly reached out to, through a third party or something, to Lori Vallow. And I'm like, dude, just reach out to her. It's okay. Yeah. Okay. Crushes the authority. And she went about it. Right. I mean,
but hang on. I mean, you might use a third person to do it. You might use a third person to do it because the person you're trying to reach out to is more likely to talk to that person than to you.
Sure. But you owe that candor. In my opinion,
I've done that. Yeah.
Well, but she's not a lawyer, right? And so I think that I think it's reasonable to do that. So let me clarify. I think it's reasonable to do that. Like, you can stretch the truth a little bit, right? You can kind of push around the edges to see how, and I consider kind of the going through a third party, and this is a good point that you made, is that, yeah, absolutely. But I think the candor on the journalist part is owed to the audience if that's something that happened. You know what I mean? If you're going to, and that's just from my perspective, you know, that if I were to contact somebody that was incarcerated or whatever the situation is, and I approach them through a third party, that's not wrong in and of itself at all. And you're right. What I think the disconnect is the way that it was misrepresented, and, you know, the kind of seeming cover up that came from it that destroys trust between reporters or media and the public, and that's a problem. That's problematic. So I guess that's my thing. But you're right. Yeah, there's nothing inherently wrong with that from a journalist perspective. I mean, the shit that the shit that you have to do sometimes to get anything can look a little nefarious, but as long as you're transparent with your audience, and you abide by some basic rules, you should be okay. But you need to be honest with your audience. I don't know.
So
Anyway.
The real KO says, Michael, isn't there a rule lawyers aren't supposed to badmouth each other? You know, there may be something there about that, but you know, generally defamation and libel law is gonna take care of that. And you know, it's the kind of thing. I mean, you know, what I don't know, and you know, what's bad mouthing? I mean, you know, I say Kevin Greenlee isn't much of a lawyer these days, isn't doing much lawyering as far as I know.
Right.
Take the, you know, is that bad mouthing him? I don't know.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I you know, people when people call me up, and I mean, a lot of people say, you know, call me up and ask me about X lawyer or Y lawyer, you know, and I'll say, yeah, they're terrific, or I'll say, yeah, you really ought to find somebody else. And you know, if somebody wants to, you know, if the lawyer who says find lawyer that I said, the person should find somebody else, comes around and like sues me for defamation or something. I don't say you should find somebody else without without some basis.
Right. Right.
And I will, I'll just say, oh well, there's this case, and this case, and that's my opinion. And I've been doing this for 30 years, and yeah, this isn't good, and have at it. But yeah, bad mouthing other lawyers. Yeah, I mean, taking out an ad saying, "Do not hire," Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
Oh, Osbrook. Yeah, right. No, sorry, that just caught me off guard.
Yeah, that would probably be bad if you're a lawyer. On the other hand, if you're a private citizen doing that, there's probably nothing matter with that.
Right, right. Well, I mean, I think that I'm gonna, hey, Krusha, I'm gonna catch up with you in a minute, if you have time, off stream, so we can talk if you'd like. And yeah, but I mean, I think at the end of the day, like I said, I'm very happy that school's starting next week, and I'm not going to have to pay attention to any of you stinking people ever again. I'm kidding. You know how much I hate people. You know how much I hate people, right? Osbrook.
Yes, ma'am.
You know how much I hate people, correct?
I've pretty much learned to hate humans from you.
Yay! Woo! I got one. I don't know, man. I think that we've ran this whole thing, beat a dead horse, whatever, all the analogies you want to enter. But I don't, man, I just don't care what they say about me personally. I really don't. But I do think that it is an interesting question that I think people are going to be forced to deal with more and more as the universe of reporters and citizen journalists keeps expanding.
But I also think it's important that people understand that the disciplinary commission or the office of the Supreme Court not pursuing a disciplinary complaint does not mean necessarily what the Tweedles said it meant.
right.
That people have a clean bill of health, that it was frivolous. They could have seen it as frivolous. I don't know.
Right.
But there are all kinds of different things it could have meant. It's just not something they want to pursue, probably for any of three reasons.
State it again.
Well,
It's
frivolous.
Oh.
It's frivolous.
Mm-hmm.
It's not serious enough to pursue. So 4 reasons. I'm good at going from 3 to 4 today. It's frivolous. It's not serious enough to pursue. It's not interesting enough. And 4, we don't want to stick our foot in this.
Right. Right. But yeah, it's interesting to see how different states operate their oversight of any given profession, but in the transparency therein or lack thereof. But yeah, I just thought, thanks a lot for calling me up and telling me that I made a cameo.
I'm made your day, I'm sure.
Yeah. I don't care, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but again, so the thing that was interesting to me about it was that it was also interesting that they, spent almost all of 2 episodes reading Baldwin's complaint, but they did not read the complaint against them. I know you've made it public, but they didn't even say, well, Andy Kopsa made the complaint public, so we're not going to read it here. We'll put the link to it down in the
I don't know.
in the text. And the fact that they didn't read it, I mean, there's just no question Kevin Greenlee violated the rule, whether he did it himself or through Anya. It's a violation of the rule. Is it serious? I don't know. Doesn't seem. I don't like it. It's not a good look. He shouldn't have done it. He should have known better than to do it. But turning somebody in, at least for lawyers, there's a duty to turn somebody in if it calls into question their fitness to practice law. There's a standard. It's not like you just have to turn everybody in who violates a rule. It's
Sure. Yeah.
The duty is to turn somebody in if, in your judgment, the violation calls into question their fitness to practice law. For me, I think it's a terrible thing to do, but I don't think Kevin Greenlee attempting this or actually doing it or doing it through Anya calls into question his fitness to practice law, which he doesn't anyway.
Right.
I think it's bad. I think he shouldn't have done it. I think maybe he should have gotten a private reprimand.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And look, it would have. I think he was saved by Rick Allen. If Rick Allen had talked to him and they had used that, I think it would have been a lot more serious.
Yeah. 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 And I didn't listen to it. So they could be saying that maybe you remember, and I really don't want to listen to them, and I'm not really that interested, but they did contact him twice. So I don't know which time they referred to. So,
yeah, well, why would they want to be transparent about who contacted them? Why would they want to actually give the details of it?
Right.
They didn't have to defend themselves against the OSC, so why should they defend themselves in public? And they just wave their hands and say, "Oh, it was just frivolous." And look, it's bad journalism. They could have an interesting discussion about it. Yeah. Kevin could go through his thought process. I didn't think about this rule. I'm an idiot. I should have, or I didn't think about
right.
Or I thought about the rule, but I'm a journalist, and so I thought I could do this.
Right.
And there's like so much interesting stuff they could do with this.
Yeah.
And instead they decide to do a hit job on, Andy and you, to some extent, Kara. And, my call this morning, my text this morning was really, yeah, I'm not in it.
Right. You're like, I cleared the bar. But I do want to make it. But the thing is that I think that their opinion about my journalism or lack thereof, or being a weirdo or whatever, that's fine. But the God, just why keep dragging Kara into it? Why keep So it's just. Like I am a journalist, right? So, and I have pantsed them publicly, repeatedly, and you bet your ass I filed that complaint and talked about it very openly. But what the hell is Kara? It's just, it's just weird. Yuck. But yeah. Anyway. Any final words?
Yeah, I don't see any.
Any questions?
I don't see any. I don't see any.
Yeah.
Any, remaining questions that I can really answer.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I think that I think that hopefully, and I go back to this, it's like the lack of hyper local journalism and the rise of access journalism is just, it's
Well, I'm
bad.
sorry. What is access journalism?
Basically doing whatever the hell, whoever. So let's say I went to the Secretary of Defense and asked him a question. He's like, listen, I will answer your question if you put out this information. Right. So
Oh, okay.
it's kind of like a pay for play almost.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's a little extreme. But I mean, I could point to hidden true crime. I could point to, anybody the thing is that, for all the hemming and hawing about Andrew Baldwin and how somehow there's this vast due process gang that would inform any of my fucking decision making is laughable. So the idea that my relationship with my sources, which I've cultivated in any case, in any story, compares to the fire hose that they got from the state. Ho, ho, ho. That's rich.
Well, I mean, the fire hose, I mean, they got two parts of their 3-part episode. Practically entire, almost all of 3 parts from McClelland. McClelland had to have sent them the copy of the complaint,
sure,
of the grievance, which they then read over most of 2 parts, and then the 3rd part is McClelland on the phone.
Yeah, but I mean, and yes, and the thing is like, but again, Nick can share it with whoever the hell he wants. I don't care. I mean,
but you just talk about access journal. I mean, but yes, we're going to do a hit job,
yes,
because I mean, that's what we get in return. That's what we pay for this access. We're going to make fun of everybody else involved, and actually misrepresent stuff. Again, they can have I've said this already. They can have their opinion that the complaints were frivolous. They don't know what the disciplinary commission thought.
Right.
McClelland doesn't know what the disciplinary commission thought. They thought it wasn't, for whatever reason, enough to pursue.
Right. And that's, and
or it was too much to pursue.
I mean, who knows? And the thing is that, it's that when you file a complaint or a grievance, file it knowing full well that if it goes nowhere, it is going to, it's not like Greenlee didn't know I filed it, I mean, so the idea that I do think it's interesting though, that they did wait for it to be dismissed. So kudos to them. But yeah, so you go into it knowing that it may go nowhere, and maybe rightfully so. I don't know, man. I don't know. But I saw some shit that
but the thing the thing you don't know, and the value of filing these things, is you don't know who else has complained.
Oh.
Who else filed a grievance about what? The disciplinary commission gets to see it all, right? And that's actually also kind of interesting. At least there's your complaint. Were there other complaints that weren't referred to the OSC? So the OSC didn't see what else there might have been. Maybe there wasn't anything else. I don't know. I'm not. It's just.
Do you think? I have a question for you. Do you think that the conflict that they were talking about the disciplinary board was the fact that Judge Gull referred Baldwin and Rosie to the I always forget her name. Meering? The woman who is the chairperson of the disciplinary committee?
Adrian Mearing's the executive director. So
Okay.
the way it works is
But hang
there's
on, let
the
me finish. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let me finish my
uh-huh.
question. Let me finish my question. My question is, could the conflict be that in that missive from Gull after the contempt hearing, referring Baldwin and Rosie to her by name in the last line of that ruling, could that be a conflict?
Why, so the question is, why wasn't the complaint Baldwin filed then also referred to the OSC?
Interesting. Yeah. So it had to be somebody else that was named in that, which there were two other names in there that came up. One of them was Nick McClelland and the other one was Jerry Holman. So it has to be something to do with them, right?
Yeah, I don't know. So that's why I wanted to say it's not just a conflict. So there's the executive director, then there are three people on the staff. So the executive director is actually staff. The commission are what, 7 members, 9 members, 7, I think.
I don't know.
And they vote on what to do with complaints, and then the executive director and the attack dogs go out. At least in the ones they decide to pursue. And I'm sure that some preliminary investigation is done by the staff. Then they send a recommendation. I mean, look, Kara's the perfect person to ask about the process. I'm not, but I think
Right.
the staff probably writes some sort of memo, or some of them they dismiss out of hand as ridiculous. But in the end, it's the board that decides.
So
And yeah.
this is Michael. Mine went to OC2, same result. But here's the thing: you I think included Kara's name. I did not. So you included, I think, which is whatever. It still shouldn't, in my opinion, affect Kara's ability to recuse herself if that's necessary. But I made no mention of anybody on the board. So I think that's the difference.
Well, and if Kara being on the board is the thing and being involved in Delphi, again, why wasn't Baldwin's referred to the OSC? I mean, I don't know.
Right. And that's the problem. That is the problem there. I think that bugs me. So that's the thing. It's like, what's the hitch and the giddy up of the system that triggers that to happen? And I don't know if anybody has that answer, right? So,
and it may not be uniform. I don't know whether it goes to the board, and the board's. I think it probably doesn't go to the board. I think that maybe the staff just decides, oh, conflict here. We're not even going to let the board decide. Send it over to the OSC. I don't know.
yeah, me neither. Me neither. No idea.
It's something of a black box. I mean, and I'm actually about to try to get disciplinary commission records from 25 years ago almost.
Oh,
Um,
it's interesting.
I'm not expecting to be successful.
Interesting. Very interesting.
The lawyer involved is dead, but
Oh, all right. Is this any case I'm familiar with? Hello? Oh God, he's gone again. What are you doing? All right. You know what? This is just too much. You I don't know what's happening. All right. You know what? I've had it up to here with all of you. Osbrook included, you weirdo. I'm getting out of here. I gotta go. I don't know if you're back, Osbrook, or not, but I've had it up to here with all of you. I've had it up to here.
Well, as long as all of us remain among the people you hate the least.
Oh, you guys all suck. You guys totally suck.